The cabin lights glowed a pale gold, casting long reflections across the polished leather of the first-class seats. The quiet hum of the engines provided a steady backdrop, broken only by the shuffle of passengers placing bags into overhead bins. I had settled in already, earbuds tucked in, my hands resting loosely on my lap. At 70 years old, I had grown used to the rituals of travel, the smell of recycled air, the faint sting of disinfectant, the hollow echo of the jetway closing behind the last boarding groups. My seat, wide and well-cushioned, was not luxury to me. It was a small comfort earned after years of discipline, service, and patience. I closed my eyes briefly, ready to let the calm of the cabin take me. Then came the voice, loud, sharp, slicing through the low murmur of conversation like a knife. "Excuse me, that's my seat. Move." I opened my eyes to see her standing over me, her presence as heavy as her words. She was around 40, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a burnt orange blazer that strained against her frame, a black blouse with a plunging neckline peeking from beneath. Her long wavy hair framed a face twisted in irritation. She pointed toward me as though she were a judge issuing a sentence. "This is 2A, she said, her tone already rising. "That's my ticket. You're in the wrong place." I slipped one earbud out, glanced down at the boarding pass resting in the pocket of the seat. The numbers were clear, unmistakable. I raised my eyes to her, calm and steady. "No, ma'am," I said evenly, "this is my seat." The reaction was immediate. Her face flushed, mouth tightening into a sneer. She snapped her fingers at the nearest flight attendant, waving her boarding pass like a weapon. "Check this. He's in my seat. I don't know what he's trying to pull, but this is mine." The attendant, a young man with a polite but weary smile, leaned closer. He compared the tickets, his eyes moving between us. A pause stretched, heavy, before he finally nodded. "Ma'am, your seat is 14C. This one belongs to him." Her jaw dropped, then snapped shut again. "That can't be right. Check again." "It's right," the attendant replied with finality, before turning to guide another passenger past her. But she didn't move. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice though the venom carried through the cabin. "Listen, I don't know what scam you're running, old man, but you don't belong up here. Look at you. You don't fit." Her words lingered like a slap. Passengers around us began to shift uncomfortably, curiosity drawing their eyes toward the confrontation. Some craned their necks. Others froze, phones discreetly lifted, recording. The air thickened, charged with the unease that only comes when civility begins to unravel. I drew in a slow breath. Years of experience told me not to bite back, not yet. Her anger was her weapon, and I would not sharpen it further. "Your seat is waiting for you," I said quietly. But she ignored me, throwing her arm over the divider as if staking her claim by force. "Do you know how much I paid for this ticket?" she barked. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" A man in the row behind muttered, "Another one," drawing a chuckle from his seatmate. The sound only fueled her fury. She wheeled around, glaring at them before snapping back to me. "You think you can just sit there? Because you're what? Old? Pitiful? I'm not falling for it. Get out of my seat." Her voice had risen enough that the captain himself could likely hear it from behind the locked cockpit door. The attendant returned, firmer this time. "Ma'am, you need to move to your assigned seat immediately. You're holding up boarding." "But Luna—" By now, I had caught her name from the muttered complaints of a passenger who recognized her, folded her arms across her chest. She planted herself directly in front of me, blocking the aisle, daring anyone to push her aside. "I'm not moving until this is fixed. I won't sit back there like some commoner. I paid for comfort, and I'm going to have it." The murmur of the cabin had grown into a chorus of sighs, whispers, and the occasional pointed cough. People wanted to move on, to take their seats, to leave behind the chaos she had created. But Luna thrived on the spotlight, mistaking attention for validation. The attendant tried reason again, then warning, but her reply was louder, sharper. "Kick him out. He doesn't deserve to be here." I sat still, my hand tightening slightly against the armrest. My pulse was steady, but there was heat rising in my chest. Not anger, control. Years of discipline kept there, simmering. She was pushing, testing how far she could go, certain she could bend the world to her will with nothing more than volume and stubbornness. "Sir, are you going to move?" she demanded, eyes narrowing. "No," I said simply. That one word was enough to send her into another spiral. She stamped her foot, the orange fabric of her blazer shifting as she waved her arms dramatically. "Unbelievable. I'm being harassed on my flight. You're all watching this, right? He's harassing me." Passengers groaned audibly this time, a ripple of discontent directed not at me, but at her. Someone muttered, "Sit down, lady," and another added, "We just want to leave." Still, she refused to back down. Her voice climbed higher, words spilling faster, accusations growing wilder. She painted herself as the victim, twisting the truth with every sentence. And yet, the more she spoke, the more the cabin seemed to turn against her. I remained where I was, earbuds dangling from one ear, gaze fixed forward. Not out of indifference, but out of choice. Reacting would only feed her. Silence, I knew, was the sharpest blade. The flight attendant's patience finally snapped. "Ma'am, if you do not move to your assigned seat immediately, I will have to involve security." Her eyes widened, but instead of fear, indignation took hold. "Security? For me? You should be dragging him out, not me." The aisle had clogged now, passengers stuck with bags in hand, forced to wait for her tantrum to burn itself out. Some had taken their phones out openly, lenses trained on her. She noticed, puffed herself up further, and declared loudly, "Fine. Record me. Everyone will see how unfair this is." And just like that, she gave them exactly what they wanted. A show. A meltdown. A perfect storm of arrogance and self-destruction. I watched quietly, noting the irony. She believed the cameras were her allies, but in truth, they were turning her into a spectacle. Every second she stalled, every insult she hurled, every stomp of her foot was being preserved, immortalized, ready to follow her long after this flight ended. The attendant leaned closer to me, his voice lowered. "I'm sorry, sir. We'll handle this." I nodded, my voice calm. "Take your time." Because I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The storm was only beginning to gather. And somewhere in the unfolding chaos, I felt the first spark of a plan beginning to take shape. The cabin had taken on a strange rhythm, the shuffle of luggage, and the quiet murmur of passengers fading beneath the rising pitch of Luna's voice. She had claimed her ground like a warrior in the wrong battle, refusing to yield even as the attendant's patience ran thin. Her shadow stretched across my seat, her body wedged against the armrest, as though proximity itself could transfer ownership. I sat in silence, my posture straight, eyes fixed ahead. Every instinct told me to remain calm, to let her words pass like a storm over stone. "Do you see this?" she shouted, swiveling to address the cabin behind her. "This old man thinks he can steal from me, and no one will stop him." Her words were venom, but the reaction was not what she expected. Passengers groaned, muttered insults under their breath, rolled their eyes with exaggerated weariness. One man raised his phone higher, deliberately framing her red face in the shot. Luna's fury sharpened at the sight, but rather than retreat, she drew strength from a spectacle, convinced an invisible audience somewhere out in the ether would applaud her defiance. The flight attendant returned, voice firmer, his patience frayed. "Ma'am, this is the last time I'll ask. Sit in your assigned seat, or we'll have to delay departure." "Delay it then," she snapped, folding her arms. "I'm not going anywhere until justice is served." Her words hung in the air like a dare. The passengers trapped in the aisle groaned audibly, shifting their weight as minutes ticked away. The claustrophobia of the cabin deepened. The recycled air seemed thicker, heavier, charged with collective irritation. I breathed slowly, steadying myself, because I understood the trap she was setting. If I reacted, if I rose from my seat or let frustration slip through, she would seize it, twist it, and wear it like a crown of righteousness. So I tried humor, a tool as disarming as it was subtle. "Ma'am," I said, my voice calm, but clear enough to reach those filming nearby. "We could trade. You take this seat, and I'll take your spot in economy if you're willing to walk in my boots. They don't recline, but they've seen more miles than you'd imagine. Laughter rippled through the rows. A brief, warm break in the tension, but it only stoked her fury. Her face tightened. Her lips curled into a snarl. You think this is funny? You think mocking me will make you look noble? She jabbed a finger toward me, her bracelet clinking against the armrest. You're a fraud. You don't belong here. You probably lied to get that upgrade. People like you always scam the system. That last accusation landed with the weight of a stone dropped into water. The ripples traveled outward, a collective shift in the cabin's energy. Passengers exchanged glances, some with open disgust, others with quiet disbelief. She had crossed a line, stepping into territory that was no longer just inconvenience, but insult. I said nothing. My silence was deliberate, but her misinterpretation was immediate. She mistook my restraint for weakness, the quiet of patience for cowardice. She pulled out her phone, holding it high. The red record light blinked as she framed herself in the center. Everyone online will see this, she cried. They'll see how I'm being mistreated, how this greedy old man thinks he can take what isn't his. Shame on all of you for letting this happen. Her performance was loud, desperate, but her audience in the cabin responded with nothing but scorn. A woman in the third row shook her head. A man behind her sighed, muttering, "She's digging her own grave." Another leaned toward his companion, whispering, "She's gonna regret this the second it hits the internet." The attendants whispered to each other, their voices low but urgent. I caught fragments: security, delay, removal. Each word painted a picture of a situation sliding beyond control. If they chose to deplane her, it would cost everyone time, comfort, patience. And though she deserved every consequence, I sensed she would frame her removal as proof of persecution. That was the trap. If it ended here, she'd find a way to twist it into a victory. I pressed my fingertips together, weighing options. Years of service had taught me that not every battle was won with force. Some were won with timing, patience, and letting the enemy undo themselves. Luna shifted closer, lowering her phone to capture my face. Look at him, sitting there smug, thinking he's above everyone. You're pathetic. Her words slid off me like rain against steel. I met her gaze for the first time, calm and unwavering. The faintest smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, not mocking, but measured. She faltered, just for a moment, before puffing herself up again. The attendants pressed once more. "Ma'am, this is the last warning. Take your seat, or you will be escorted off this plane." "Escort me then," she shouted, throwing her arms wide as if embracing martyrdom. "Everyone will know how I was mistreated." Passengers booed now, openly hostile to her antics. Some shouted for her to sit down, others demanded the flight move on. But she only grew louder, stomping her foot, clapping her hands like a child throwing a tantrum. I leaned back, earbuds still dangling, my expression calm. To anyone watching, it might have looked like indifference, but inside, something sharper was forming. She believed she was winning, that her noise had given her power. But what she didn't realize was that she had set the stage for her own undoing. Every insult, every shriek, every wild accusation was another brick in the wall that would collapse around her. I remembered the pre-boarding announcement, the captain's promise to honor service members on the flight. The thought flickered in my mind like a spark in dry grass. Recognition was coming, inevitable and public. If I waited, if I allowed her to dig deep enough, that moment would arrive like a hammer falling on stone. So I did nothing. I let her shout, let her dig, let her spin her story tighter and tighter until it strangled itself. The passengers' resentment grew, their sympathy for me sharpened, and the eyes of dozens of phones captured every second of her descent. The attendants retreated momentarily, no doubt consulting with the captain. Luna smirked, mistaking their absence for victory. She leaned in again, her voice a hiss meant only for me. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it." I met her glare with the same calm I had held since the beginning. My voice was low, steady, almost gentle. "We'll see." She recoiled as if struck, unprepared for composure where she expected collapse. She turned back to her camera, resuming her rant, louder now, desperate to reclaim ground she hadn't realized she'd already lost. The hum of the engines deepened, signaling the crew's preparation for departure. A quiet announcement crackled over the intercom, a reminder that soon the captain would address the passengers before takeoff. My heart steadied, not with fear, but with anticipation. The storm was nearly at its peak, and I knew the break would come with perfect timing. The intercom crackled to life, cutting through Luna's voice as if the very air had grown tired of carrying her words. The captain's calm baritone rolled over the cabin, commanding attention without effort. Ladies and gentlemen, before we depart, we'd like to take a moment to recognize the veterans traveling with us today. We are honored to welcome Mr. My name followed, spoken clearly, reverberating through the speakers. 30 years of service in the United States Army. On behalf of the crew and our passengers, we thank you for your service. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the cabin erupted in applause. Passengers clapped, some cheered. Others leaned into the aisle to catch a glimpse of me. Phones swiveled in my direction, recording. But now the lens framed me as the center of dignity rather than spectacle. I inclined my head, offering a modest nod, my face calm though my chest carried the weight of pride and memory. Luna froze. Her expression crumbled from triumph to disbelief. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Her hand, holding the phone, trembled, the red recording light still glowing. She turned to the passengers around her, seeking support, but found only eyes brimming with contempt. That's not real," she stammered, her voice weaker than before. "He's lying. He's making it up." The flight attendant, already standing nearby, raised a hand with the manifest. "It's real, ma'am." His credentials were verified before the flight. The passengers, who had groaned before now, found their voices in unison. "Sit down, Karen," one shouted. "Show some respect," echoed another. Laughter and jeers swelled, drowning out her protests. The power she had clung to dissolved like sand slipping through open fingers. She tried one last desperate performance, raising her chin, forcing defiance into her trembling voice. "I paid for this seat. I deserve this seat. He doesn't." But her words fell into a storm of boos. Someone yelled, "You deserve economy," and another added, "or the sidewalk." The tension that had gripped the cabin twisted into satisfaction, passengers savoring the spectacle of her downfall. The flight attendant's tone left no room for misinterpretation. "Ma'am, you must return to your seat in economy. Now." Luna stood rooted, her blazer shifting as her chest heaved. Her eyes darted from face to face, seeking an ally, but the room had already chosen sides. Finally, she snapped, "I'm not moving. If he stays, I'm leaving." Her threat backfired instantly. 2 uniformed security officers appeared in the aisle, summoned quietly during her tirade. Their presence drew a wave of murmurs, phones lifting higher to capture the final act. One officer spoke firmly. "Ma'am, please come with us." "No. This isn't fair," she shrieked, twisting away, clutching the seatback as though it might anchor her. Her designer bag slipped from her shoulder, spilling across the floor. A wallet, a few cosmetics, and a pair of sunglasses clattered out, but what drew laughter were the labels, cheap knockoffs with crooked logos, a mockery of the luxury she pretended to embody. Passengers erupted in laughter, the irony landing sharper than any insult. Luna scrambled to gather her things, her face red, streaked with sweat, but the officers were already guiding her down the aisle. She thrashed, her voice cracking, desperate to reclaim the authority that had slipped from her grasp. "You'll regret this. All of you. You can't treat me like this." But her words dissolved into the roar of approval from the cabin. Applause rose, passengers clapping not just for her removal, but for the justice of the moment. "Bye, Karen," someone called, and others echoed it until it became a chant. Phones followed her exit, ensuring her humiliation would live long beyond the flight. When the door closed behind her, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The tension that had strangled the cabin evaporated, replaced with laughter, relief, and quiet conversation. Passengers leaned into one another, shaking their heads, recounting the absurdity of what they had witnessed. The air, once heavy, felt lighter, almost celebratory. I remained in my seat, earbuds still resting in my lap, hands folded. I accepted the nods of gratitude from those around me with a simple smile. A woman across the aisle leaned over. "Thank you for your service and for your patience." Another passenger offered to buy me a drink once we were in the air. The kindness was genuine, warm, and it reminded me of something I had always known. Respect was not demanded, it was earned. Luna had sought the illusion of status through noise and spectacle, but true stature came in silence, in composure, in the strength to remain unshaken. As the plane finally pushed back from the gate, the engine swelling into a steady roar, I looked out the window at the stretch of tarmac bathed in orange evening light. The cabin behind me hummed with quiet laughter, the occasional replay of video clips already spreading to eager hands. Somewhere out there, Luna's meltdown was being uploaded, dissected, mocked. The internet would not be kind. I closed my eyes briefly, letting the rhythm of the engine settle into my chest. This wasn't about a seat. It never had been. It was about dignity, about the quiet satisfaction of letting arrogance undo itself. Luna had demanded first class, but she never understood what it truly meant. The flight attendant returned once more, placing a glass of water on my tray. "Compliments of the crew," he said softly. "And thank you again." I raised the glass in acknowledgement, my voice steady. "First class isn't where you sit," I said, half to him, half to myself. "It's how you carry yourself." He smiled faintly, nodding, before moving on. As the plane lifted into the air, climbing above the city lights that glittered like scattered embers below, I felt the last threads of tension release. Luna had been removed, her noise silenced, her performance ended. Justice had come not with anger, but with timing, patience, and the weight of truth. And yet, I knew this was not the end. Somewhere, her video would circulate, her face forever etched into the digital theater of ridicule. Karma had a way of traveling faster than any plane. I leaned back in my seat, slipped my earbuds in once more, and let the music wash over me. The storm had passed, and peace had returned.